Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the C's Automotive Garage. And we are finally going to be fixing the old 89 Chevy Celebrity 2.8 V6. So, I've pretty much done everything to this. This will probably be maybe one of the last times you'll see the car. Probably not, because the owner is going to be giving me the work that needs to be done to this car if anything else goes wrong with it. I'll probably be the only one fixing it, which is, well, a good thing, because I'd rather me do it because I know about the vehicle. I don't want some shop telling him something else is wrong when it's not, costing thousands of dollars, because he got quoted about $900 to do the lower intake manifold gasket replacement. That is insane. So we got the car, and we're gonna do it. I was gonna have my one friend that I know that has a garage to do that, because I can't do that one step, which is the preload setback for the rocker arms. I think you have to have it running when you do it. I don't know that part of the procedure, but however, he's going to come over and do that one step for me, because I can't do it. I don't know exactly what it needs to be torqued to or how to exactly set that correctly, because I have to remove the push rods and all that stuff when I take everything apart to put the new gaskets and stuff in and put it back together, because the gasket sits behind the push rods on this style, apparently. This is a 7-hour job. So anyway, we're going to get right into this and quit chit-chatting, because I want to get this car done and out of here. I want to work on other things. I love the car. It's just I've had it for too long now, and I'm time for it to be fixed. And, well, get this thing running right. Drive it a little bit. Put some mileage on it before it goes back to the owner. So, pretty much, get some tools ready, get this thing torqued apart. I'm gonna not really tell you exactly how to do this. I'm just gonna put you along with me and show you what I'm doing, and you can take it like that, because I doubt there's any videos of stuff like this from the 80s of doing intake manifold gasket replacements on these. Okay, so the battery's already disconnected. It needs to be charged, but that's another thing for later. I gotta take this whole intake off. The hose and stuff, air cleaner. I'm just going to take the whole unit and set it to the side and set it in the car. Upper intake comes off. Alternators are getting removed. Power steering is getting removed. The belt. Some vacuum hoses. The front valve cover. The rear valve cover. EGR valve. Fuel injector line. Everything. I'm just going to take it as one unit and just flip it backwards and lay it to the side. I'm not going to disconnect the lines or take the injectors out or nothing like that. I'm just going to pop it out of there, out of the lower intake, and just lay it to the side. Front engine mount comes out. Coolant's got to be drained. I'll probably change the oil again after I do all this, just to make sure there's nothing that got mixed. And not only that, I'm sure it's probably dirty already. I've only put maybe a couple thousand miles on it since I brought it back to life. It's got, yeah, it's already dark, so it's gonna have to be changed again. Let's see here. So, go ahead and start ripping it apart. This car only has around 173,000, so it's not really bad. This is the first time I've actually seen an intake gasket fail. It has to be that. Everything else has been replaced. And there's a lot of crankcase vacuum suction into the valve cover right here, where the PCV valve vent is supposed to go from here to this intake hose. If you take the oil cap off, there's a lot of suction through here too, so there's definitely a vacuum leak in the lower end. There's a sensor onto the side right here to unplug. Coolant's draining. Most of the sensors on this side's unplugged. Throttle body cables are unplugged. EGR valves taken off. 3 bolts are 13mm. Map sensor. The main harness plug at the back's unplugged. That goes to like some of the sensors that's back there. I gotta disconnect some other. Two 13s, take the throttle body off. One known good thing about these cars, if you're tall like I am, I'm 6'1", bending over does not go well a lot. It kills the back. So the hood on these, actually, you undo it, push the hood all the way back, there's a slot over there. I know the Oldsmobiles do it. There's a slot over there that the rod can actually sit in and hold the hood straight up. And it'll give you more space. The Celebrities don't, but it'll hold itself. Besides that light. There we go. See what I mean? Straight up. bolts off, and I'm telling you, it's a headache to fix. I did that on the Lumina because it was leaking right there down and onto the hose, and so I took it apart, and if I'm not mistaken, this bolt here is the one that snapped off inside the timing cover. So it's either you replace the whole timing cover or you drill it out. Well, I drilled it out and messed it up, had to drill it again, messed it up, ended up drilling a huge hole, JB welding it, then drilling it again, and then putting this bolt in it and calling it done, and JB welding the whole thing, so it'll probably never come off again. So, anyway, just be careful when you take those bolts out. Feels like a T27 Torx bit. Some of these have a 10mm, or not a 10, but an 8mm or 5/16. I've never seen the ones with the Torx bit before. Just hope it comes out. That's not going to work because it's not an even thing. Those bolts are very common for snapping off, and it's a nightmare to fix once it happens. At least it is for me. They were very close, on the verge of breaking. Pretty rusty, pretty crusty. I'm gonna paint them and maybe put some anti-seize or something like that on to keep them from breaking off in the future, because that is aluminum. And like I said, drilling into it's not fun. The whole reason I'm taking it off is because it's a water crossover pipe and it's right in front of the valve cover. That whole thing has to come off. It goes all the way to the throttle body, and I took the throttle body off. Alternators removed, serpentine belts removed, power steering pumps removed, the bracket for the alternators removed. So now it's injector rails, valve covers, and then intake. Alright, so like I said, the only thing that's left now is fuel rail and lower intake. All it is this bolt that you unbolt, so it's a 10mm, and then you got 4 little 8mm bolts right here that hold the fuel rail in, and it comes out. You got to make sure you just, be careful with it, and then a wiring harness and such, and then move these vacuum lines out of the way. And then you have the intake bolts. But the problem is, this guy, I don't have a wrench that's big enough. The biggest I've got is a 22mm. I don't have anything bigger than that. I tried these wouldn't work. I was slipping, and I can't get a grip on it, squeezing it together, trying to pull it this way. I would try a crescent wrench, but the ones that I have are not big enough to grip that, so I'm going to have to go to the parts store. I need one anyway, looks like, and buy a new tool to fit that, to take that line off. There is a line rubber hose to the other end, but the bolt is, there's a bracket that holds this line to the block down here. I can't get a wrench in there. I don't know how they got that in, but with the exhaust in the way, there's no room because it's way down there. And I don't want to do all that, so I really want to just get this undone, because the whole thermostat housing and everything is part of the lower intake. It's all as one unit, so I got to remove this hose as well. But yeah, this has got to be undone first before the intake can be taken off. So I guess we'll come back when it's daylight. Alright guys, so it's been a little bit since the last time that y'all seen this, from where I had it last in pieces. Well, now it's taken apart even more. The whole intake's removed. I've actually went ahead and painted the front and rear valve cover, and I painted the intake. Well, I did it anyway just because I wanted it to look nice when everything goes back together, even though this is not a Eurosport model. Anyway, the leak, I couldn't really tell. However, the gasket's over here. You need to set the push rods exactly how they come out in order, because you can't mix them up. You have exhaust, you have intake, and you can't mix them up because one's shorter, one's longer, all that good stuff. So I took my old box here and shoved the push rods in here, labeled them front to back, whatever. But the old gasket's right here. This guy, I mean, they were pretty thin on the ports. Now some of them, this is what's strange I don't get about GM. Some of them have already cutouts for like the push rods to go through. That's the whole reason I had to remove the push rods, was because the gasket will not come out and the new one won't go in, and you can see it's got GM written on it. So this is the original intake manifold gasket, but you got to remove it in order to install and remove the old one and the new one. Like I said, there's I think there's like 6 that you got to remove, but I went ahead and removed them all to put them in order because I didn't want to have them mixed up, all that good stuff. So anyway, the ports are cleaned up. The little China walls, I call them, are cleaned up here and here, because you got to take a bead of silicone RTV and put it here, thick bead, and both sides. I'm not going to put any on the ports here. It says in the directions to just put it on. There is tabs, 1, 2, 3. I think the same way on the other side, that locks the gasket kind of sort of in so it doesn't move, so that way you can put the gasket back down on the heads themselves. So I went ahead and replaced the distributor dummy O-ring. That is very simple, very common of an oil leak on these, 3128. But anyway, you take this little 15mm nut out, and then you jiggle and wiggle this guy, and it pops right out. There's a little O-ring on it, and actually here is the O-ring. This thing was brittle. This could be, I mean, look at this. Probably break it, the rest of it. Yeah, I just broke the rest of it in my hand. It's pretty brittle. It's lucky it probably didn't even leak. You know, I was shocked. But anyway, I'm going to clean up the bottom of the lower intake, put that, and then put the gasket down, put a bead of silicone on both sides, a thick, sort of a wide bead, on the China walls right here on both sides, so it doesn't leak oil out. And then we'll set the intake down, torque it to spec, and then we can put the push rods back in their spot, so where they're supposed to go. Technically, I could go ahead and put the push rods back in and not have to do that before or after the intake's put down. So may do that first. So put the gasket in, put the RTV on both sides, and then push rods back in. And you really don't even, all you have to do is torque these down to spec, because there's no set preload on this engine. Apparently I found that out. I thought you had to have a whole preload set when you set these back. Most V6s, I know the old school Chevy 350s did, to where when you remove the rocker arms, you had to have the preload set back. But these are set to where when you put the nut back on and everything back together, you torque it down and you're done. The threads only go down so far, so there's no preload set on this. I am so glad that GM got rid of that bull crap on this. I don't know about my 87 Eurosport, but this one is an 89, so, well, I'm just really glad that it doesn't have that. So anyway, enough chit chat. I'm going to put this back together, and then when I get the lower back on, we'll start getting other things put back on and put back in. Okay, so now the surfaces are clean. The new gasket is set in. The push rods and everything is back installed. Everything's tightened down like it should be. I don't know the torque specs for these guys, but I'm going to try to find them. But anyway, so I'm about to lay a bead of silicone. I don't want to use this stuff. This is all I've got. It's a brand new tube. RTV silicone high temperature gasket sealer. Just for the ends of the channel walls here and there. Thick bead, so no oil or anything leaks out of there. It came with a little tube, but I don't think it's going to be good enough to seal this up. Got to seal this guy up. So the surfaces of this is cleaned out. You got a coolant passages here and here, but this side is blocked off and this side is blocked off, so it's kind of crazy how they did that. Okay, so now this bead of silicone is put on it. It's you know, it's thick enough for what it needs. The reason I did that line is because that's exactly where it sits. You don't need a whole wide bead all the way around. And this side's even thinner. But you want it thick just enough so when you squish it down that it spreads out and seals completely and doesn't leak. So now let's go ahead and put the intake on. Alright, intake is in. Perfect bead is squished out on the sides, which is what you want. Same for this side. So now it's time to put the bolts back in. The middle ones are all the same size, and the left side they're the same, but the right side, the longest one's to the front, the shortest one's to the rear. But now it's time to put these guys in and torque them to spec. Alright, so the intake is on. It is torqued to spec. There's two different procedures you've got to do. I didn't put any Loctite on the threads. I didn't use any sealant on the threads. I just put them back in. They had a little bit of oil on them, which was fine. That'll keep them from getting stuck into the heads. If this sucker has to come back off again for whatever reason. Here is the procedure that I found through a website online, and it is 15 foot-pounds at first go around, and I have it numbered to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you got 7 and 8. Once you do the first step, then you go back around again 24 foot-pounds. Do the same procedure in order, just like you would do lug nuts on the vehicle, and after that you're pretty much golden. But I will say, don't ever buy one of these things. They suck. I'm definitely going to invest into a digital one, because this one right here that's supposed to click whenever you do it, it's not wanting to do that, and it came close to almost snapping off a bolt to the head. So definitely going to invest in one, and it's not a Harbor Freight Van brand. It's actually a thing from CarQuest, but no, and it wasn't Advance Auto. It's CarQuest brand, but it wasn't from Advance. Anyway, so that's done. Now it's time to put on the little odds and ends things. I'm not going to show every little step, but I'm going to go on some of the stuff. I'm going to double check, make sure the rocker arms and everything is torqued down what it should be. I couldn't find anything online, but I'm just going to tighten it down as best as I can get it with the ratchet. Just don't go extreme, because you don't want to snap one off. I painted the valve covers, front and rear. That's going to look good when it's put on. They're bright red. It's actually caliper paint, but it'll work for this. And they're not clear coated, but that one does look like it's clear coated. That's the rear one. This is the front one, if you didn't know. And if this was my car, I would be painting the fuel rail too, just because. Probably painting it black or something like that. But anyway, let's see, what else? Then we got a bunch of like vacuum lines and some wiring to go through, all that good stuff. I also painted the upper intake plenum, so that'll look good when it's all back together. But for now, I'm going to get the surfaces cleaned up. I've already cleaned up the valve cover some, and they were already actually cleaning the inside. So whoever owned this car before, the original owner, which is an older lady, really took care of it for oil changes, because the Eurosport that I own, every bit inside of there is gummed up so bad that you could take a finger and just pry into it and have chunks of stuff, carbon build up. And this one's very, very clean. So anyway, enough chit chat again, and start putting this stuff back together. Okay, so valve covers are on. They're tightened down, snug, tight. It's good to go. Upper radiator hose is on tight. The crossover pipe that comes all the way down here loops all the way around to the heater core. That guy right there is tight. Put some Teflon tape on the threads. Fuel injectors are in, fuel rails in, tightened down. Injector harness is plugged up. Vacuum hoses are halfway in. Intake on top is set on but not bolted in. Trying to go through the wiring and all that bull crap. It's back here in the back. Found one of these guys. I don't even know what it goes to. I hate this in a way because my Eurosport does not have the same setup as this one. My map sensor is not on the intake. Mine's over here on the firewall because it's 87. This one's 89. Let's see here. Problem is the vacuum hoses are brittle. I mean, they're little to none, as everybody knows. 30-plus-year-old car. They're breaking. I've got vacuum hoses in between the plastic to put them back together to make one. This little guy right here, if I'm not mistaken, goes to the map sensor, but the map sensor sits over here. And I'm confused. Alright, so this goes here. That don't reach. I don't know how I had this hooked up last time. I don't have any pictures of it because, you know, I was thinking smart when I did this. I know this comes off. Okay, so this comes off. I wouldn't have thought that something went into this hole, like the harness, but I don't see any of those spots. I thought this guy, the injector harness plug, slid on the bracket at the bottom, but with the hole there, the harness actually held into it, like this one does. Big mess with this right here. You got, in vacuum hoses, you got to be gentle with, not the brake that come to the HVAC and all that stuff. And then you got your throttle cables and all that stuff between it too. So it's kind of rough to move this stuff around. Jeez, man, this is a mess. But I'm gonna go through it, try to find out what's going on. I set the intake on it because I wanted to see exactly where the map sensor was. I mean, the map sensor sits here. You see the hose is not gonna reach. So I'm just wondering, how did I do that last time? I'll have to get a longer hose or something like that to put on that spot, because there's nothing else that would go back here. This main vacuum hose plugs into this one and this one. See, it has two spots. So this one would go here straight up, and then you got your side one that goes to this one. But yeah, I mean, that's got to be it. Has to be the map sensor one. And there's no other vacuum hoses that this would have went to, unless this went to there and it snapped and I put it there. I mean, this has been probably a month ago or more that I've had this apart when y'all first seen the first clip of this. So, you know, things are a little fuzzy at first. I know how things go back together, but when it comes to vacuum hoses, I should have took pictures. Okay, so I got some of this stuff. It is windshield washer hose, vacuum tubing, whatever. There's the size. It's from O'Reilly's. I forget how much I paid for it. I keep a lot of stuff in stock. But I don't need 6 foot of hose, so I'm going to cut some of this what I need. And it's the size diameter. So just make it where it runs from that little guy all the way over here to where the map sensor is going to sit. Alright. Oh boy, that was a mess. I got that figured out. Pretty sure it's the way it's supposed to go, but now that I'm thinking about it and got to looking, there's a little hole right there. And I'm betting that pipe that I got this hose or vacuum loan plastic like this, that this hose is hooked to, probably went through that hole, which was what this happened. It broke when I took it apart last time, forgot. And that's how it's supposed to route. It's supposed to come through that hole and then over to the map sensor. Because there's no other vacuum hose that's supposed to come out. It has to be the one for the map. So anyway, that's done. It looks neat. It's clean. Intake's bolted down, torqued, whatever. Map sensors in, vacuum hoses are plugged back up, oxygen sensors plugged up, injector harness, EGR valve, vacuum hoses, EGR valves bolted down. The only thing left is the serpentine belt, power steering pump, coolant crossover pipe, alternator, some coolant hoses, put coolant in it, change the oil, put the intake tube on. Let's see here. I got to plug up the harness over here for some sensors, throttle position, auto control valve, coolant temperature sensor, all that good stuff. I'm not going to put coolant in it yet, even though it's like 30 degrees. I'm freezing because I want the gaskets to seal really good before I put any coolant in it. The RTV, as cold as it is not going to seal too good, and it has to wait at least 24 hours. So I still got to put the brake booster hose on, but throttle body and all that stuff's got to be put on too, and the intake hose and the air filter. So anyway, I'm gonna snap to it, get this thing done. It'll be like a flash for y'all, but a good little bit for me. So okay, so it's been a couple days. More has progressed on this. Like I said, I hate that I'm not showing you everything, but you've seen a lot of it when I took it apart, and it's really easy to do this stuff. As far as doing the other, it's just getting to the intake. So the serpentine belt's back on, power steering pump, alternator, all that stuff's plugged up, good to go. The vent hose for the emissions crap is hooked up. The little belt cover's put on. I still gotta put this hose on. Probably should do that now before I forget. And that's torqued down. The coolant bypass hose, or pipe as they call it. And what else here? The main problems I've run into is this guy. The little coolant hoses that go to the throttle body, you can't find them anymore. And I mean nowhere. I had to do a lot of Google searching to find it. Here is the correct hose if you're running into this issue. This one from the coolant bypass pipe goes straight. That is no problem. You get a regular 5/8 heater hose, you're good to go. This one here, pain in the butt. It has to be a 90-degree bend, just like so. I believe the same size 5/8 or a little bit smaller than that. Here is the part number. I got it from AutoZone. Now I have an account with them, so it's going to be a little cheaper, but here's the part number, A70948. It took me a lot to find that. This one fits. It fits a little snug. I take a little bit of WD-40 oil, put around it, and then pop it on, tighten it down with a clamp. Both of them. And it's good to go. So it took me probably 3 trips to the parts store to finally find the right one that I needed, and a lot of Google searching. But everything else has progressed. It's pretty much now just putting, changing the oil, put coolant in it, put these hoses on, throttle body, intake, hose, air filter in the box, and all that stuff. Plug up the sensors that go to the throttle body, and then see if it'll actually run again, and hopefully no misfires. Okay, so everything is double checked and checked, and everything seems to be good. So I still got to change the oil, but it ain't gonna hurt just to run it for a second. I didn't really drop that much coolant into the oil. It was maybe like a cap full off of an oil bottle, so if even that. So let's fire it up, make sure it runs good before I change the oil and put coolant in it. I'm not going to run it long, I just want to run it and see how it runs. steaming a little bit, getting up to temperature. And 82. And then in here it's about right over around right at 220. So it is charging better than that. I don't know why it's showing 13, but I know it's charging better than that. And it's got nice hot heat, like it should. Let it warm up, make sure the fan comes on, make sure all the air is bleeding out of the system, and take this thing for a test drive. So this thing's kind of running rough. I'm not sure what's going on here. I did get a code, I checked it. Code 44, which means oxygen sensor detected running lean condition. I'm not sure what's going on. I checked all the vacuum hoses. I don't see nothing wrong, so I don't know there. There's something up. I had this code before I touched the intake, so it would come and go. But every time the check engine light comes on, the car runs like poo. Just straight up like crap. It don't want to idle right. It kind of idles so low that it acts like it's got a built cam in it, sitting to the loping. And that's not right. Nasty stuff coming out of the radiator. Even though the radiator's new, must be stuff in the block. But I guess we'll take it down the road and see what happens. And there it goes. Back here it stinks. It smells like it's running rich instead of lean. I wonder if I got a bad oxygen sensor. That's almost what it seems like to me. I'm wondering if a bad oxygen sensor is causing this issue. Wouldn't surprise me. Finally coming up in temperature. I'm waiting for the cooling fan to come on before I can actually take it around the road. I want to make sure all the air is out of the system. There we go, cooling fan's on. And it went down, just like I needed. Alright, let's go ahead and do a test drive. Alright, so it's been a couple days since the last time you've seen it. And all the fluids are double checked. Oil is clean, coolant's full. Everything's been double checked. Battery is charged. I still got to get another battery for it. Problem is now, and I've already taken it for a test drive. I'll show you guys what it's doing. But it's having an issue of like the TCC is messing up on the transmission, but that's unplugged. It shouldn't have any effect to it. When you're backing up in reverse, or most of the time it's when you're going forward and your foot's on the brake, or maybe not even on the brake, and you're just coasting, doing maybe 5 or 10, 15 miles an hour, 25, the car is surging. Idle's going up and down, up and down, up and down. And when you're going down the road and you're coming to a stop from, say, 30 miles an hour to less, and it goes to downshift and do its thing, the car jerks as it's downshifting because the idle and everything is cutting out like the car's trying to die as you're coming to a stop. That's the only other time that it ever does it. It doesn't do it when you're accelerating, doesn't do it when you're doing a steady speed at, let's say, 45, 55, even 65 highway speeds. It only does it when you're coming to a stop, and I don't know what is going on. Only thing I can think of would be a vacuum leak, but I've double checked all that stuff. There shouldn't be any vacuum leaks anywhere unless it's the EGR valve. I'm going to have to spray it with some brake cleaner and see if it changes. I noticed that when I pressed the valve in, the car didn't die. It's supposed to die if those are good, so I'm wondering if that's what the issue is. I'm going to fire it up and show you what it's doing. Temperature gauge is off too. It's not reading correctly. I put 40 miles on it since the engine was ripped apart. I also changed the oxygen sensor because of the lean codes I was getting. That kind of fixed that issue, but the stumble when coming to a stop, I don't understand just yet. See if it stalls out. Well, maybe it is good. Let's get the brake cleaner out, spray around it. Alright, so I don't know what's going on. I've tried everything now. I sprayed around the EGR valve, I sprayed around the common failure right here, the throttle body, nothing. Like I said, I've went over all the vacuum hoses before I put everything back together, and I know that it should not have any leaks. So I don't understand. Throttle shaft. Nope. Nothing there. I don't know. The only thing I can think of, it could be a transmission issue. So maybe it needs a fluid and filter change. Add some Lucas when I put it back together. Just because of mileage and stuff. See what happens. That's not making any sense. That's the only time this car ever acts up now. Is when it's in gear when you're going down the road. So let's go ahead and show you what it's doing. Alright, put it in gear. I mean, like, it revs up fine. Nothing wrong there. Coming up in temperature already, which is pretty quick compared to the other car. Right into gear, no jerk. Right into gear, no jerk, no nothing. I get it smooth. Second. Hopefully it'll catch it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like I said, it drives fine going down the road, smooth as could be, like it should be. Every time you come to a stop, you start slowing down. You don't even have to be on the brake. I thought it had something to do with the brake booster, but it's not. Here we go. Are you kidding me? It ain't doing it now? Well, it is surging in idle a little bit. Alright, let's try it again. Yeah, I can't believe this. It's not doing it now. It's like the problem just went all the way. That does not make any sense. Okay then. Definitely want to change the transmission fluid and filter, though. I still think that it's a little jerky at times, especially when it gets hot. But other than that, I mean, the car handles good, drives good, like it should. You know, all the power's there. So, oh, there it goes. Starting to do the issue now. There it goes. It was surging like it was trying to die when I stopped. Just don't make no sense. It doesn't, and it doesn't do it. It's doing it a lot before, and now that I want to show you guys, it didn't want to do nothing like that, like what it was before. I mean, it was so bad before, like it stalled on me a couple times of it surging. Alright, well, I believe we're going to end this one off here. I've already made it longer than I wanted it to be. It's pretty much showing you how to do an intake manifold gasket, sort of, and pretty much just bringing you along with me of doing this, just so I have it on film and have more content for you guys. This car has came a long way, you know, and there's tedious little things to do to it, but I mean, for the most part, runs, drives, everything works like it should. I've got to get another battery. I'm probably going to go to the junkyard and get 2 side post terminals and get rid of this top post bull crap that should have never been put in here. I'm worried that this is going to bump up and hit this, arc it, fry the computer and anything else, so that needs to be changed. It does have a hold down, but a good steady bump would probably knock it up. This whole back part could probably lift. I don't know. Either way, I just don't like that. I don't like how sketchy none of this looks. The wires are not that great that are in here. The ground on this side is not the greatest either. You know, that needs to be better than that. I just don't like it. And while I have it out, I might as well go ahead and spray the bottom part of the battery where it sits, the battery tray part, black to protect it from rust, because it's already starting. Mine on my Eurosport's rusted out underneath, so wonders the battery hadn't fell through yet. Anyway, so for the most part, this car has had new plugs, new wires, new ignition coils, ICM is replaced, the crank sensor is replaced, knock sensor and the connector for it, outer row control valve, throttle position sensor, coolant temperature sensor, vacuum hoses, serpentine belt tensioner, power steering pump, radiator hoses, thermostat, tires, front brakes and hoses, a detail. It's still got to be cleaned. I'm going to have to polish it and clean it up again before he gets it back. Intake manifold gasket, EGR valve. I believe I got that from another vehicle. Valve cover gaskets, intake manifold gaskets. Let's see, throttle body was cleaned. Injectors were done. The fuel filter's been replaced. Some vacuum hoses and stuff like that. It's been done. But and the little crossover pipe's been done. The hoses to the throttle body's been done. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much left. I gotta clean the overflow tank. It is nasty in there. Let me show you guys so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Look at that. That is disgusting. Yeah, it's got to be cleaned. So we'll do that, and I may go ahead and change the fluid and filter in the transmission just to be safe before it gets too much higher miles in it, because I don't think it's ever been changed. It's still a little pink. It's not as bright red like it should be, but an air filter was done too as well. But I mean, pretty much everything's been done, so it shouldn't have any more issues of going down the road. The gauge, alternator gauge, is a little funky on the inside. I gotta figure out why. I believe it has something to do with these terminals and that battery being shot. I have a feeling that after I do all that, the alternator is going to take a dump next, which is more likely it happens. But anyway, if you have questions or comments, leave them in the bottom. If you like this content and you want to see more, give it a big thumbs up. And for other vehicles, will be coming soon. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys, staying with me for all this time. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing any of this. So I appreciate it. I will catch you in the next one. Stay tuned for more content coming your way. Catch you later.